It would seem that artificial intelligence is here to stay, and it's becoming more and more intertwined with our everyday lives. What once seemed like an impossibility is available at the click of a button. The intelligence of AI is expanding, and that is a concept that either excites or terrifies you. But what would happen if we combined the seemingly limitless power of artificial intelligence with the creativity and logic of human intelligence by transferring human consciousness onto the digital plane? That is the question that developer Signal Space Lab is asking with their latest VR release, Human Within. This concept is a fruit ripe for the picking in 2025, but does Human Within tap into the limitless potential, or does it fry my brain like an experimental technology not yet fit for public use?
I don't know how you did this, Lynn, but it looks like we can see everything in the store from any position. Try changing your orientation.
Before we find out, please remember to subscribe so you don't miss the review of your next favorite indie game. Also, kindly check us out over at patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to support independent content and earn yourself exclusive perks like early and ad-free content, Discord access, and so much more. Your indie gaming community is waiting for you. As it turns out, Human Within is not Signal Space Lab's first foray into the VR scene. 2019's Afterlife was similar in design to Human Within, as it places the player as a silent spectator while events of the game unfold around you. However, Human Within goes a bit deeper, implementing more varied gameplay elements, which we will deconstruct a bit more later. First, let's set the scene. The game opens on Nyla, a cyber engineer in an unfamiliar lab, seated next to her sister/partner Lynn, who is unconscious yet alive. They're accompanied by a mysterious man named Blake, who seems to have kept both of these parties against their will. Lynn and Nyla are the creators of Pasithea, a wearable technology that looks suspiciously similar to my Meta Quest headset, which connects the human brain to the digital space. Blake, who has the capital to back their project, also plans to use this creation for all the wrong reasons. With Nyla trapped in a room and Lynn incapacitated and unable to help her escape, the sisters use the power of their device to harness all of the resources around them. Through the power of Pasithea, we perceive the game through Lynn's mind, assisting Nyla in finding someone on the outside who can get them out of their dire circumstances.
I mean, isn't this a potentially big moment? Why not treat it as such?
The gameplay in Human Within can be separated into a few neat compartments. First, there are the full-motion video scenes, which you sometimes experience as a silent, unperceived spectator in the room while a 360-degree video unfolds around you. Every so often, you can interact in these story segments by selecting from a few available responses, which can impact the outcome of the story. You make these selections by moving your head in the direction of your desired response. For me, these scenes were the most immersive and interesting offerings Human Within had on display.
I think it was.
Huh?
Oh, you gotta be kidding, Blake.
However, most of the plot development occurs on a flat screen hanging in a Matrix-esque futuristic backdrop, while other camera angles and information hover to the right or left. These flat scenes are not nearly as immersive and end up feeling like watching a movie on a web browser with a few too many tabs open and a couple of pop-up ads that I have actively trained my brain to avoid perceiving. The next gameplay compartment comes in the form of cube puzzles. These puzzles are exactly what they look and sound like. You have a set of cubes, each with touch points that must align with one another in order to piece together corrupted data. Last and decidedly least are the room composite segments. These segments involve navigating around a rough concept of a room compiled from archived security footage and whatnot into what I can only describe as TV static meets magic eye images. In these scenes, you can freely explore using either a snap to movement or free movement. I can tell you that as a victim of motion sickness, I leaned heavily on the snap movements, while this still somehow left me me feeling a twinge of queasiness, it was nothing compared to my normal first-person gameplay experience, so I'll count that as a win. Unfortunately, I think that is the only redeeming feature of these sections. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I hated these scenes. Your objective is to typically interact with the right object that will advance the story. Sometimes this will be something like a facial scan of an individual in the room. Easy enough. However, as the game progresses, they become more and more abstract with what they're looking for. Find the hidden door? Brother, it's hidden. That's not exactly giving me a lot to go off of. Often, I would find myself aimlessly wandering, running my cursor across every surface of the room, trying to figure out exactly what I could and could not interact with. I didn't feel challenged. I felt frustrated, bored, and moderately nauseated, only wanting these scenes to end so I could advance the intriguing story. As a VR game, Human Within does a decent job of utilizing the headset, but I do feel there are some things that could improve upon this experience. I'm sure this has a good deal to do with budget, but the 360-degree videos are so much more immersive than the floating flat screen. I know FMV is not for everyone, but I do think it's an interesting and underappreciated video game medium that has a lot of potential in the VR space. I'd also just sacrifice the room composite scenes entirely, which unfortunately is where it feels like most of the VR implementation lies. These scenes often broke my immersion in the story and felt cheaply made compared to the production value of the rest of the game. It was a mismatch that just felt off to me. Being that the majority of Human Within is a full motion video game, you don't just get voice acting, but actual human acting.
Then leave my fucking business to me.
For the most part, I really enjoyed these performances. Protagonist Nyla and antagonist Blake were the standouts, effectively making you root for or against them respectively. One thing I did notice was that there were quite a few prolonged pauses in dialogue. It almost felt like the developers intended to add more player choices during these scenes, but ran out of time or budget. I'm not sure if this is the case or not, but I got the vibe that they were told to draw out these moments of silence that were otherwise unexplained. Apart from those 3D graphic composite scenes, I did enjoy the presentation of Human Within. From neat menus to visually appealing overlays, it was mostly quite sharp and performed well with my MetaQuest 3 in the optimal setup for VR gaming. It's a relatively short experience that only lasts the span of a feature-length film, but there are multiple endings which can be found by making different choices, so you'll have a reason to go back and play the game again. These choices also reveal different scenes, with each playthrough keeping things fresh on your second or third attempt. There are 5 endings to achieve in total, so plenty of replayability. Human Within feels like the natural progression for FMV games, but I'm not sure if it's something that will capture the interest of the typical VR enthusiast. That said, I respect the vision here, and I'm curious to see what other kinds of interesting stories can be told in this format. While still imperfect, it feels like a step up from the developer's previous VR release, and a general step in the right direction for VR storytelling. As you know, here at I Dream of Indie Games, we believe that games are so much more than a number. As such, we have a lamp tiering system with bronze, silver, and gold lamps representing good, great, and exceptional games respectively. We also have the Rusty Lantern for games with a glimmer of hope, and the dreaded Indie Krampus for the less than pleasant experiences. I am awarding Human Within the bronze genie lamp of approval. I'd recommend this title to folks that enjoy both FMV and VR titles in equal doses, and those that are dipping their toes into the VR space and looking for a title that focuses more on story than gameplay.
Because with Pasadena, there is no telling how far our potential as human beings can reach.
Do you have the courage to tackle the gaming echo chamber and give a voice to the voiceless? Subscribe to the channel for all your indie gaming needs, and hop on over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames for Discord access and exclusive perks. Join our amazing community and help I Dream of Indie Games shine brighter than ever. Voice to the voiceless, and see you in the next video, Indie Warriors.